I'm Colonel Paul J. Evanko, the Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner, retired, and we're talking about the crash of Flight 93 on 9/11. My secretary called me, and it was early in the morning because I went in around 6, and she called around 8, maybe something like that, so I had been working over at this off-site location. And she said, "You better turn the TV on." She didn't say anything, hung up. I turned it on. The first plane had already crashed. I took everything that I had, threw it in a briefcase, and I went right to the PEMA, to the Emergency Management Agency. I was there before the second plane crashed. I instantly knew, and I've talked about this before in various arenas, I instantly knew this was no accident, especially with the second plane crashing. There were a lot of conversations going on. As you can imagine, it was very hectic from the moment the second plane went down to that point in time. There were phone calls. There was utter, I don't want to say confusion because it wasn't confusion, but there were so many calls and so much speculation as to what, where, when, and how, and what we're going to do about it. But my concern was, what if another one goes down? I didn't think about another one going down, but how many of these are we going to be able to handle? How many other, what else might happen? Is there going to be, what is going to happen? And nobody can answer that question. That was my concern. What's the next step in the terrorist situation? It was early on, they crossed the state line and started to bank. At that point, I knew, you're not going to bank like that unless you're heading someplace else. And at that point, you almost knew that it's going to head back into Pennsylvania and then they started heading south again. And then we knew that it's going to be an event in Pennsylvania probably. When we knew Flight 93 was down, then we started putting everybody heading in that direction. As many people as we could get. And then all of our resources, 100% of everything we had went to 9/11, went to Shanksville. My first thought was, could anybody survive that? We knew it was down, we knew it had crashed, but how many people are dead is the question I asked myself. And once we knew that plane crashed right after the other ones, that's an act of terrorism. There's no doubt about that. And my comment was, that's an FBI investigation. We will support them with people, with anything that we have. So we started getting helicopters. We started making arrangements for horses to do because it was spread out so much. We started everything that you would need for a big operation like that. I thought to myself, what's the biggest attack that could come? And my thought at that time were nuclear power plants. And I thought, we really need to do something to prevent anybody coming near those nuclear power plants. So we had troopers going from all their locations to each of the nuclear power plants to make sure nobody got near them, and obviously, it was successful. Nobody did get near them. Nobody could get near them. I was taking care of trying to get the governor back to Pennsylvania, find the lieutenant governor, make arrangements to get him back. So my time was tied up right then and there in getting the governor back to Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, by that time, the ban on air travel was in effect. Nobody was going anywhere. The military said nobody flies, and they were serious about it. I'll tell you how serious they were. When we finally, after 3 hours, got authorization to take him by a military helicopter to the site, we're flying along. Now we have authorization, and I'm looking out the corner of my eye, and I thought I saw a movement. And I know there's not supposed to be anybody up there. And I look again, and here's a fighter jet right off the left side of our helicopter. And a second later, there's another fighter jet. So they're right beside us. They're looking us over to make sure we're who we said we were. And with that, they went, poof, and they were going. So that was a little, I don't know how you describe something like that, because you know, you're looking at these things, you know what they're capable of doing. It was very solemn. There was no discussion. Maybe once in a while somebody said something, but everybody was just looking out their side of the helicopter. It was solemn. It was almost, well, it was beyond unbelief, because you didn't know what, you might have been told that there's nothing there, but then when you see it, it's another matter. I remember as we landed, the governor, he has a certain look when he is focused and direct, and you don't, never mistake it when you see it. And he got out of the helicopter, I got out, and the general got out. And we simply walked up the side of the hill, down the side of the hill, to where there was a group of troopers, and we're looking, and he says to me, "Where is it?" And I took my hand like this. I still remember it. And I said, "It's right there." He said, "Where?" I said, "It's right there in front of you." And he was speechless, as we all were when we first saw that. It was one of astonishment and one of terror that things could be so destroyed that there's only little pieces of it. Every once in a while there'd be a little bit of bigger pieces, but that there, where is it? And it was embedded into the ground. How could something like how could something that big be destroyed so infinitesimally? And if you look close enough, you could see some of the imprint of the wings and a little bit of the fuselage. I could see some of the imprint in the ground, but that's what I thought. There was a press conference scheduled at 6 p.m. at Shanksville, which was a big deal in and of itself, to sit in front of those cameras and try to explain what happened and what's going to be done about it. And you know, the governor is so articulate in assessing the situation and giving direction and control and orders that there was no doubt what we're going to do. We're going to handle this as we handle anything else.
All of my fellow citizens in Pennsylvania, and I suspect across the country, when it's difficult to describe the range of emotions everyone feels when they not only learn about these incidents today, but they've actually seen them. And the dictionary is inadequate. There aren't enough words, but I guess the range of emotion goes from rage and anger to sorrow to horror to, I guess, a sense of nausea that we all experience and feel. 9:30 this morning.
There were so many press officers there that I don't even have any idea how many there were. You're staring at them and you know they're there, but you're trying to understand, where did all these people come from? All these reporters come from? We stayed another couple weeks to make sure that everything was found that could be found. And it was, it ended up being a routine type measure of search and recovery. And we weren't going to leave until we knew what we thought every piece of significant evidence was, or potential significant evidence was uncovered. When I say these troopers were out there, they went out there with nothing but their uniforms. And it's cold out there. They were building fires. They were building shelters. They were looking for something to eat. And what was nice is that the people in the community started bringing food out. They started bringing firewood out. They started helping these troopers, get something that they needed to survive with. I'll tell you what the big thing was that struck me was when the buses came with the relatives and the troopers. All the troopers had been lined up and they're saluting in unison the buses that have next of kin, touching sight beyond anything you can imagine. And the next of kin, they treated them like royalty. And that's the way these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of troopers reacted. They treated the people and the site as sacred ground. That touched me. There were so many different agencies beyond, from the Red Cross to you name it. But the one thing everybody had in common was a commonality of purpose. And that purpose was to take care of this scene and take care of everybody that was involved in it. And because of that, I didn't know of one interagency problem at all. And that's really sometimes unbelievable, because everybody has their own little thing going on, except with this. And everybody worked together, everybody shared information, everybody had input, and it was a sight to behold, I'll say that. Well, I don't know what you can say about going out there and seeing the memorial. I had been out a number of times before it was constructed, and to say that it's touching is an understatement, knowing what happened. I feel overwhelmed when I go out there. I feel overwhelmed about not only what I see, but what I know happened, not only what has been done since then to memorialize for the families and America what went on, what happened. Here you have a situation where it took literally years for these terrorists. They spent so much time briefing, counter briefings, surveillances. They put so much effort into this whole thing, and they lost. They lost because somebody, a few people, maybe all the passengers, decided you're not going to take over. And they fought back, and they were that close to prevailing. And a couple more seconds, I think, would have made a difference. That wasn't meant to be. It's unbelievable is what the impression is, even after this is almost 20 years. The impression is the same today as it was 20 years ago.